I am Mark Tallman with KASB. Welcome, thank you for joining us. You know, as we start back to school, as every year, issues of safety are important. There's a lot going on in particular this year, and to help fill us in on some of the things that are happening across the state and for local districts, we are honored to have the two staff of the Safe and Secure Schools Unit of the State Department of Education, fresh from a presentation this week to the State Board of Education. So we wanted them to be able to talk to our audience about some of the things happening. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and then we'll get into your presentation.
I'm Susan McMahan with the Safe and Secure Schools Unit, and
I'm John Calvert. I'm kind of the drills coordinator and presenter for the Safe and Secure Schools Unit.
Okay. Well, what can you tell us about, again, you gave a fascinating presentation to the state board. I know they were interested in many things and particularly interested in how we can push that information out to local districts. And why don't we start with some of the things you want to visit about?
so we have partnered with 9 different state agencies across the state that in Senate Bill 109, Section 76, actually created our department. And in that, it gave us 4 agencies we had to collaborate with. But when we got into the law and creating the standards that the Board of Education passed last year, we felt the need to add more state partners that we could benefit from and have access to their knowledge and resources. So these are the 9 that we have with us. Since the creation of these standards, we have partnered with the Highway Patrol. They went around the state with us as we did workshops this last spring and presented on our standards that we have that we'll probably visit about later. And then the Fire Marshal and I, as we all know, in Senate Bill 109, Section 98, it put 16 drills onto our schools last year, which was an extreme burden, and they weren't ready for it. So he and I worked together and presented our ideas to the Council of Superintendents in February, and they took that, our words and what we suggested, and created Senate Bill 128, which passed in April, and the governor signed it towards the midsection of April.
So that relieves, that
right.
kind of excessive number has kind of been brought back down.
So
to something
it
more
has
manageable.
been brought down to, so if we talk about Senate Bill 128 really quick, 4 fire drills, and 2 tornado drills, 1 in September and 1 in March, because we have 2 tornado seasons now in the state. And then at least, at a minimum, 3 crisis drills. So those drills last year were 9. And so we proceeded to, instead of 16, we boiled it down to 9 for the whole school year, that all the school districts could participate. Even the big ones, they could have multiple school buildings doing it at the same time. So we felt that was fair, and then this way, with John on board and doing exercise and drill training, we can get out there a little bit more often and help the schools build these drills so they're trauma informed and they're done the right way.
Well, I know many of our districts appreciate the work that was done. I think everyone was concerned. You know, the old law, as I remember, didn't speak to crisis drills. It talked about fire and tornado. I think people welcomed the idea of trading some of those out, but the bill ultimately just ended up having more than I think anyone intended.
Right.
And so good work for you, the fire marshal, and the legislature for coming up to something that people feel is more reasonable.
Right. And so what we're going to talk about today is our partnership with the KBI.
Okay.
And then the piece and resource they brought to us. We were only on the job for about 2 weeks when they approached us about this project. And we have been working hand in hand with them for about 9 months to get this off the ground and going. And it's the suspicious activity reporting system that I briefed the Board of Education on yesterday.
Okay, so suspicious activities reporting system is really kind of part of the new effort that we're looking at.
Right, right.
Okay.
So with the suspicious activity reporting system, what we have looked at, we have a team of 5 different levels of the KBI. We have a clinical psychologist on board. John and I sit on that team, and just this last week we brought in another part of the KBI, which is their criminal analyst side. And so as a team, we have built the matrix for the criminal analysts to use when they get these tips that come in on this reporting system. And then we have also dictated on how, if depending on what type of incident comes in, whether it's criminal, bullying, just to report something that you feel is suspicious, where it goes, where that information goes. Does it stay law enforcement? Does it come to the school system? Or do we need to push it out to mental health? So we have all those avenues covered for any kind of information that comes into us on this tip line.
And what we're currently showing is an example of what you see at the website. If you
Right.
go to this, that kind of lets you identify what the concern is, and that allows the people monitoring this process to be able to direct that in the right way. Who
Right.
needs to know?
So the only thing on this, when you go to our website or KBI's website, there is an icon that pops up, and you click on that one, and it brings you to this report. It kind of defaults to what is suspicious activity, and tells you what it is and how to utilize the website. And then when you click on that, it'll give you that default screen. And then when you click on Start Report, you'll see what we just saw just a minute ago. The only thing that has to be filled in is what is in red. So describe what you're reporting. What kind? Is it criminal? Is it drug related? Is it school violence related? There's several things you can choose from. But then in the I saw area, please describe what you're telling us about. What we need, the knowledge that we need to do our jobs, to be able to keep our schools safe and secure. And at the end, where it's green right there, right above that, you can check that box and leave your information. Or you can leave it unchecked, like we have left it as a default. And that puts your submission in anonymously.
So that's a choice that you kind of have to decide.
Right.
You can be anonymous. Of course, if you're anonymous, people say, well, I reported and I didn't hear anything back. Well, you probably won't hear anything back unless you allow people to communicate back
Right.
with you. At the same time, we know some people may not want to report without being anonymous. So
Right.
the choice then is to the individual.
So it is to the individual. So also, when you hit submit, the next thing that will pop up is a receipt. So even if you want to be anonymous, you can still keep that receipt number, call into KBI with that receipt number, and still stay anonymous and find out how your tip was actioned.
Okay, very
So
good.
there is a follow through.
All right. Okay, what's next?
What's next? So we have been an active unit since October 1st. And since then, like I said, we have partnered with 9 state agencies, brought resources to schools that they have not had before. We created a page, thanks to John. He created our website page, and we have resources on there, free training on there that we're getting from different agencies across the nation. What we have done law-wise, what is up there, what is frequent, what we're working off of, and then resources that they can utilize and use within their school districts. Also, we're advertising that our Safe and Supportive School Conference is coming up September 23rd and 24th. And so we're getting ready for that. We secured a national speaker, Dr. Steven Soroka. We saw him in a national conference that we were at and was totally taken by his message. And I think it will fit what we are doing in the state of Kansas.
Okay, very good. Well, I know one of the things you shared with the board is kind of a new image or graphic that tries to bring together. We really have several ways that people can report concerns. Is that
Right.
fair to say?
There is, yes.
Rob, can we bring that up?
So, right, our wonderful communications and graphics department put this poster together for us to use. So the Choose Peace report, the first one is, by law, we have to have that school state violence hotline, and KHP is who answers that hotline. So we have worked with them, and we have gotten all the information that we need from them. And so when we, with the KBI, created the suspicious activity reporting system, we created this QR code that's on the bottom with the KBI logo. And what you can do is you can open your smartphone up to the camera, or if you have a QR code reader, you can hover over it, and it will automatically pop up the link, and you just tap it, and you're right at the report. So we feel that the students will use this more than calling. They're not, this generation doesn't like to talk. They're more about texting and what's instant and easy. So that's why we created the QR code, is to get them to use it and use it in a descriptive way, or
It's in a discreet way.
a discreet way. So nobody, they can open it and type and nobody knows what they're
Right.
doing.
So that material and that image that you've shown, that's what's being circulated, and certainly we would encourage schools to make that widely available, put it up, put it in student handbooks, make it available. Key thing to stress from the viewpoint of students is you can call if you want to use that old-fashioned technology. There's both a violence line and a bullying line, but then there also is the third way, using the QR code or whatever. If you don't want to talk to someone, that's another way you can share information.
Right.
And so the key thing for our local school leaders is making sure that students, as well as staff and others, I assume, all know that there are places they can turn to if they have concerns, if they feel something needs to be reported, whether it's something they're observing or something that's happening to them.
Right, because we teach that school safety is a community and a whole community approach, and that having this tool opens it up to anyone who can use it. Like I said yesterday at the Board of Education, we are one of the first states to bring it down to this level. It usually stays at the state level, but we were able to work with the KBI, and they were gracious enough to get their IT department on board, and we have been able to bring it all the way down to the whole community level. And so it's for everyone to use.
Okay, very good. Well, that is exciting news. Are there other resources now that are going out to districts that they need to be aware of?
So on our website, under that icon for the suspicious activity reporting tool.
Now, and did you decide what you're calling that icon? I know at the state board, is
said
that
the
the little
Google-
mask guy or something like
Well,
that?
they call it the googly eye guy.
The googly eye
I
guy,
can't
okay.
remember what the news called it last night.
detective.
The
That's
detective.
okay. Well, see, I thought it looked more like the robber than the cop, I
Right.
guess. So I don't know, but
So, but that icon is only on our website, Safe and Secure Schools Unit website on KSDE and on KBI's, and it's nowhere else. The QR code will be accessible anywhere that there's a poster. And so what we are trying to do is get those out to the school districts. They're going to print, I got a notice that they're going to print today. And so we will have them to hand out and give. But on that page that John created, underneath that icon it's called SAR Resources. So John created labels that can go on MacBooks or tablets that has the QR code, and it also has the Safe School hotline on there too. So the kids will always have it with them if you put it on their electronics. We've created posters that can just the QR code, just a big poster of that. We have given them instructions on how to use the QR code and the different things like that. We put the poster up online. We have a second poster that we have done from the Department of Homeland Security point of view of see something, say something, but we've added hear something with the same three information flows.
okay.
So we've, like I said, worked with KHP. So even if somebody calls in, they are going to use the SAR so we can have one data repository so we can start actioning things in a faster, more convenient, not convenient, but well-rounded way that we can start getting more statistics
Okay.
and we can start curbing things as we see them come in.
Okay, sounds very good. Well, I know another area that you talked to the board about a little bit, I guess for want of a better word, is money. The legislature has provided some funding for 2 years in a row now for grants to school districts. There's also some other money available, I understand. So tell us a little bit about what resources schools are able to access and what they might be able to do in the future.
So last year, the 9 standards that we have, they just went off those 9 standards. And and did the money. And that was before John and I were even hired. This year, in the 2019-2020 grant monies, they really restricted the scope to just Standard 1 and Standard 2, which Standard 1 is infrastructure protection, how to harden your facilities. That's doors, locks, windows, putting the film on the windows, and how to deter people from wanting to come into your building. Standard number 2 is about the electronics, like the camera systems, the buzzer systems, and the intercom systems for the safety side of everything. And that was what this year's grant money has gone to, which has been already allocated, and the schools already have it in their hands. Their projects have to be, it's a yearly thing because it's on an appropriations bill. So they have to have their project and their money spent by June 30th, 2020.
And that, I guess, is a key thing to keep in mind. This is not viewed as a permanent funding stream. It's been provided the last 2 years. We don't know whether it would come back. There's a matching component, I believe, is the case.
It's 1-to-1.
And I think you also told the board how you kind of encourage districts to look at this as something you could do in phases, depending on how revenue flows, how quickly you could spend on those kinds of issues. Okay, very good. I guess we may just want to make clear the 9 standards. That was something written in law that you developed, the state board approved, that local districts are supposed to be able to use that as a checklist themselves. So if you are interested in what the state thinks needs to be done in any of those areas, you can go to that list of standards. One of the things I think is important is there is, I believe, a requirement in state law that was passed 2 years ago. If it's still in, you can tell me that you need to have a crisis plan. While that may seem logical that people would, it's now for the first time become an actual expectation. And I know one of the things that is really stressed, so you may want to talk a little bit more, is the importance of working with other people in your community. And I think that's why you began with all those other agencies. A crisis plan for you alone that doesn't also talk to law enforcement and other agencies probably isn't going to work very effectively.
Right, that's true. So what we had received was different crisis plans. So we had one that was 8 pages long. We had one that was 174. And then we had a Class 6A school that was in a 5-inch ring binder. So we built a template that school districts can use. It's a fill-in-the-blank type, and they can make it their own type template, but it's a starting point. But we need to have more robust plans and be able to exercise those plans, train all staff on those plans, and make sure that whatever we find as gaps, we are creating improvement plans on to fill all those gaps that we find when we test these plans.
And that's something that you guys are looking at. Part of your responsibility is to review those plans. Is that correct?
Well, we look at them. It is the responsibility of the school board to approve them. But if they want our help, I'm going to be teaching a class at that conference in September on crisis planning. We had also talked about, and we'll probably bring it to fruition, of at least having 2 just crisis plan training workshop days. Probably one in the west and one in the east this fall. And that way we can work one-on-one with the schools for a day of doing just crisis planning.
So for our school leaders, if you are wondering, how are you doing? I mean, where do you look compared to best practices? Because I know many people, you get on a local school board, you know your community, you don't necessarily have a good point of comparison. Your department and these opportunities that you're talking about are ways that someone can come in, look at what you're doing, and provide help at the local level if there are gaps or deficiencies or things where you see improvements are possible.
And so we strongly encourage, standard number 8 tells them that once they have these crisis plans done, that they need to be bringing in their law enforcement, emergency management, fire, and EMS into their planning process and train on their plan so they know if law enforcement or anyone has to come onto their campus, how law enforcement is going to respond. And then everyone coming onto the campus knows what the school is going to do. You need to build that liaison partnership with them, and then that way everybody knows what everybody's going to do when a crisis happens on a campus.
Okay. Another thing that you mentioned, the state board, are another set of grants and kind of a broader sense of, was it crisis was the term, that crisis mitigation,
No,
or
it's hazard mitigation.
hazard
Hazard
mitigation.
mitigation.
So tell us about hazard mitigation a little
So
bit.
hazard mitigation grant program falls under FEMA, and then at the state level, it is under the Kansas Division of Emergency Management. And how a school district can be eligible for these funds is they have to be a partner in their regional or their county hazard mitigation plan, multi-jurisdictional plan. They've had to be part of the planning process. They have to be in the plan, and they also have to, when the plan is approved by FEMA, when it comes back to the jurisdiction, they have to adopt that plan. And once they do that, then it will open up some hazard mitigation funds that they open up like once a year to build safe rooms and things like that for the school districts.
So that would be another place where someone could get resources if they see a deficiency. I think what struck you, I don't know whether we have a slide, but the list of hazards, and I think one of the things that you kind of pointed out is, well, maybe you didn't point it out, I took it, is that we really have more to worry about from earthquakes than shooters specifically. That although the attention are on those high visible issues like that, there's an awful lot of things that are on this list
Right.
that probably nobody really thinks about, but certainly could produce the same kind of problems, destruction, death. So you want to comment on these
Sure.
other things that people need to be worried about?
So what it is, this comes from the emergency management world, and that's what we're trying to do, is get everybody to coordinate all hazards, because every first responding agency will respond with the all hazards approach. So we're trying to get the school districts on the same thing. So to open their eyes that they're typically just drilling on fire, tornado, and active assailants.
Right.
But there's so much more out there that happens. Like we were talking about earthquakes lately, in the last couple of weeks, we've had some 4.0s or higher earthquakes in the state. We have 2 to 3 earthquakes a day. They're usually on the minor side of the Richter scale, but they are still causing damage, especially in south central, southeast Kansas. The earthquakes from Oklahoma are causing now infrastructure damage. So we need to be, since they're becoming more frequent, who thought that we would have to start teaching school districts how to drill earthquake drills? But even on our website is how to do an earthquake drill, and we will coach you through that on how to do it. But we need to start paying attention because we do have the possibility.
What have you highlighted there? You meant a couple of other things I know on our slide.
Right. So extreme temperatures, which we have been in lately. I don't know, out here, out east. I don't know about the rest of the state. We had excessive snow days this last year.
Right, good point.
And when do you call school off? Let's be a little bit safer on how we decide on these extreme temperatures, especially when the last 2 days was over 100 indices. And different things like that. A lot of schools, they're older buildings, they still don't have full air conditioning. You know, take into mind what a body can endure during these extreme temperatures. Hazardous materials, that falls under so many different things. So most of our school districts have built their buildings near highways or interstates. And hazardous material trucks run down those roads all the time. And on the railroads, there's a lot of schools built near railroads. And if there's a hazardous material spill, do you know what and how to respond? Are you going to shelter in place, which means turning your whole HVAC system, everything, air intake off, and sealing windows and sealing doors? Or do you have enough time to move your kids and evacuate them out of the plume? So those kind of things. Same thing, they do it already with active assailant by run, hide, fight. So if you're going to hide, you're sheltering in place. If you're going to run, you're evacuating. So how that looks and what that looks like across the state, trying to keep some similarity involved.
Well, I think you've probably given us all a lot more things to worry about, because as I was hearing that is exactly what I was I don't think we do think about that. If you
Right.
have a truckload of hazardous material that breaks down in front of your school or something like that, are you thinking about that in the same way you are trying to make sure, the building has locks and everything
Right.
like that? So is the key to that the interaction with the county?
Right.
So once again, this comes back to that theme, and I know it's something that, the state board, the State Department, and everyone is really pushing, school leaders needing to be involved with all the other parts of your community. In this
Right.
case, all of the other groups at the city or county level, just as you're doing at the state level, that might be involved in things that are a threat to the safety of our students and our schools. You've got to have a relationship and be working together
Right.
with them. It's more time, it's more effort, but if we're going to be safe, those are things we need to look at.
Right, and if they partner at that local level with all those agencies, some of those agencies like emergency management, the hospitals, public health, already have mandated exercises that they have to do. So why doesn't a school jump on those exercises and piggyback them? And so they can learn the capabilities of each agency, like we brought resources to the schools that they didn't even know existed. And so those are the kinds of things. You might have something in your community that you don't even know about until you start building that relationship and that partnership.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want to stress? John, we haven't let you talk very much. Anything else you want to get in before we wrap up?
Again, the safety of our kids is our number one priority, but getting out there that our schools really are safe. We don't ever want to try and tell people that the sky is falling. Our schools are safe. Statistically speaking, we're 1,600 times safer inside of our schools than we are anywhere else. Schools are safe. We understand that there's fears. Both of us have kids in the public school system right now. We understand what's going on. Our job and what we try to do is, again, partner with the agencies and partner with our schools and our local people and try and dispel some of the rumors that are out there. But we also know that our kids are a wealth of knowledge that we really aren't tapping into. And so by building positive relationships with our youth and giving them avenues that instead of taking information student to student, they can take it vertical to a trusted adult or to the suspicious activity report or a phone call so that it can be actionable and that we can stop their concerns before they start.
That has really been striking to me. I've been following the work of the bullying task force that the commissioner set up and looking at some of those issues. And the statistic I saw, in my mind, a surprising number of kids report being bullied, but the striking thing was half of them said they never told an adult. And so we then have concerns, well, why isn't the school doing something? Why isn't anyone doing about it? Well, the starting point is, you have to tell someone, and yet at the same time, I'm not putting the blame on the student if they don't feel comfortable. If they don't feel comfortable, if they don't know how, then that's an obligation that comes back to the adults to do something about that. So
absolutely, and one of we like to push cheap and or free things to our schools because we know the schools have a ton of money that they can just throw out everywhere, but we want to keep things cheap and or free if we can. And one of the best things that I've heard touring the state is during a PD session with their staff, what a school district did was they talked to their students during a seminar period, and they had a note card and had the students write their name on a note card, and then on the back of that same note card they just told the students, write down a trusted adult in this building that you can go to if you need help. And if there's not one, just put no one. The kids turned that in. They brought that to a PD session with the teachers, and they said, here are the X number of kids who put no one. You are now in charge of these kids, and they all got to pick kids to build that relationship. Again, that is cheap, if not free. You have to pay for the note cards, but just a way that
there's probably an app that would even do that.
I'm sure it would.
If you looked into
And,
it, but-
and a lot of times we hear about the forgotten kids, and so this is just another avenue that we don't forget kids, because no one got into this job, no one got into education to forget kids. Everybody loves kids and they love what they're doing. So we just want to stress that whatever we can do to help school districts, to help communities, that's why we're here. We've done an extensive amount of work and effort to try and get what we're doing and what our unit is doing out to the public so that we're not some sort of a secret. If we have to travel all the time and make presentations or continue to we're updating our website probably once a week, if not a little beforehand. But if we just get out there and get what we're doing out there so that we can try and keep everybody safe, that's our goal.
Well, we appreciate that, and I would just say, however you, our viewer, have come across this, we hope we've done it in a way you can share it. So if this is information, we hope it's useful to you, but we certainly would also welcome you to share this information that KASB provides, and of course go directly to these folks in their department. They're here to help you, and of course we are too. There is their contact information. So want to thank you both very much for joining us. Great presentation of the State Board. Please keep KASB in mind if there's information you want to get out that we can help out with. We're here to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thanks to our viewers for joining us.